I'm Guillaume from Vermont. I work in the Advanced Research Department, and today I'm going to talk about aircraft structural health monitoring using an autonomous wireless acoustic sensor node. You hear me fine? No? Okay. So structural health monitoring is not a new thing. It's, let's say, a common survey or maintenance or process for traditional structure like the bridge, wind turbine, or even a railway. It's also used for aircraft, but now aircraft manufacturers are using more and more composite parts in their airplane, and then ultrasound sensing start to make more sense because the typical flows that you can find in an aircraft, for instance, are microcracks, delamination, and they are mostly situated within the parts to be monitored. The recommended traditional way to survey aircraft parts is a simple visual inspection, but for composite parts, it's a nonsense to use the traditional way to survey such a structure. And that's why we think that ultrasound is, of course, a very performant solution to detect such a cracks, such a flows within the composite parts. It has already been proven using classical or traditional on-L phased array technology. But here we are talking about an automated monitoring of aircraft structure, and we want to make the survey of the whole aircraft structure. So we want, and we have another constraint, which is that we need to detect flows at an early stage, but at different locations in the aircraft. But you have very, very complex shape of the aircraft and a lot of different kind of flows. So basically, it's not an easy thing, and we cannot answer with a unique ultrasound inspection methodology. Of course, you have plenty of different ways to inspect the flows within composite parts. It can be acoustic emission, it can be simple pulse echo. There is a whole bunch of ultrasound inspection families to do that. And that's why our statement and I think our contribution would be to define a very highly versatile and flexible acoustic sensor. Why versatile? Because it can host a different ultrasound. It has to be able to host the different ultrasound inspection technology, as I said, at different frequency range for different algorithms. And it has to be autonomous because we want to embed this acoustic sensor node within the composite part to survey. And it has to be cheap, of course, and wireless because we think that to survey a whole aircraft, we are talking about 1,000 of autonomous acoustic sensor nodes. So if you have 1,000 of nodes to be connected together, it starts to be costly, and in terms of weight too, it starts to be a problem for the aircraft manufacturer. So what is an acoustic sensor node? It's a very, very simple, let's say, assembly of different bricks. The first one is the power management unit, which will harvest the energy from ambient energy sources. It will convert the electrical energy into something that is useful for the different electronic components. You have to store the energy using micro battery or using super condensator. And then you have the different bricks of course, do the sensing operation. We have a microcontroller with a CPU to control everything, but also to make the digital signal processing. And you have also to have the RF module to enable the communication, both in transmit and receive between the different nodes. As I said, we are talking about 1,000 of sensors per aircraft. So it can be organized through very well organized network, large network, it can be a mesh or a star network, or something more hybrid, or it can even be a neural network. So I would like to point out the fact that the most important thing is not related to the inspection technology you are going to use, but mostly on the power consumption of the inspection technology that you are going to use. And for us, under our estimation that are done mainly on available publications, a sensing cycle should consume something like 1 joule. So for the next of the presentation, I'm going to focus on the power management unit and in the second time on the acoustic sensor. So in fact, all these development are done within the frame of an European program, research program, H2020 Smart Memphis program, where we will develop very smart and well-integrated components. But this is a 4-year program, and we are the first year, and we wanted to first accelerate the development and to move forward with very simple but already performant solutions. So this is what we did with this cantilever beam to harvest energy from the ambient mechanical vibration. So I don't know if you are familiar with piezoelectric energy harvesting solution to harvest vibrational ambient energy. In fact, we are using 2 piezoelectric layers bonded together under an opposite polarization direction. We have a basis that, let's say, gathers the mechanical vibration, the surrounding mechanical vibration. You have an inertial tip mass, which will bend the cantilever beam and then produce the energy. There is plenty of different types of energy, piezoelectric-based energy harvesting. It can be operated along the D31 piezoelectric mode or the D33. It can be a beam, it can be a bridge, even a spiral. And but it can be also be integrated into a MEMS. This is what we want to do within the program, but also a macro device. The thing is that in an airplane, the energy source, the vibrational energy source, is mostly centered below 100 Hertz and even below 50 Hertz sometimes. So what we did, we defined a very simple process flow. We bond the 2 PZT layers together, and we have performed some optimization on the grinding process that enable us to grind down these PZT layers to 14 micron maximum. So basically, I don't know if you are also familiar with other MEMS process, but for thick-film, we can obtain bulk PZT with a thickness below the thickness of certain thick-film. So we are, let's say, blurring the lines between the 2 technologies. So, and as I show here, we have the resulting, we plate 2 faces after grinding down the bulk PZT, and we pattern it mechanically. And and we obtain that kind of bimorph architecture. So this is microscopy photography at X50. So this is using 2 PMNPT layers, okay, with an inner shim 10 micron copper layer. This is the same with 2 PZT layers. So do not pay too much attention on the shipping. This is to see the crosscut. We have diced it, and this is the way we produce the shipping. So the good thing is that we have a high tunability degree. We can select different piezoelectric material, PZT like PMNPT, but other if required. Then we can tune the electrical impedance. We can choose, of course, the thickness of the different material, and our, let's say, our opinion is that I don't want to say bad thing about thick-film and thin-film, but we are going about very low frequency oscillations. So it means that the free end of the cantilever beam will maybe see a displacement of maybe 1 millimeter. So under such very high stress, we are pretty confident about the performances of such bulk PZT layers compared to other films. But that's a good thing to, let's say, benchmark the 2 technologies. So that's why we move a step forward. We produce what we just described above. And this is the cantilever beam. So this is the free end. This is the clamp end. It's a 25 by 25 active area cantilever beam. And with the frame is 32 by 32. So after that, we decide to measure. We have developed a fully programmable, let's say, vibrational bench. So we are able to drive the acceleration, the harmonic acceleration frequency level, and also to the resistive load to measure the root mean square output power. So we do not use a shaker because we are at a very low frequency and it's quite expensive for what we want to do. So we have just used a low frequency loudspeaker, and we have developed a custom ticket box, programmable custom box. And as it is fully programmable, we start to run some different experimentation, and this is what we got. So here I present according to the frequency for different acceleration amplitude from 100 milli-G to 1G, the resonance, the shape of the resonance frequency obtained at the optimized resistive load. And basically what you can clearly see, and we were quite upset to see that, is completely nonlinear. So nonlinear because we have the softening effect, so frequency is decreasing as soon as on acceleration level is increasing, but also the shape is not at all symmetrical. And sometimes for other type of bimorph, we have other results that means for us that it's not really reliable. And as you can see, from 100 milli-G to 1G, the optimal resistance dropped from 12 kilo ohm, to 6 kilo ohm, and dropped from 90 Hz to 88 Hz. The good thing is the power level we can got. We got a root mean output power of about 2.5 milliwatt for 1G at 90 Hz. So it's already good. But due to the nonlinear, I'd say, behavior, we were a little bit worried about connecting this to existing electronics. But we did it. We connect our bimorph to off-the-shelf linear technology DC-DC converter, and with two storage, it was a 80 millifarad supercapacitor and a thin film battery. And we connected all these components together, and we have follows, let's say, the charging profile for different acceleration. And the thing that you can see here is at 1G, at this point, the 80 millifarad supercapacitor has been fully charged. For us, it's quite important because at that point, it means that we are able to do a sensing cycle. We have enough energy. So the bad point is that 0.6G is our lower limit, but it's mostly related to our design, which is quite thick and not really suitable, I would say, for such an application. Regarding acoustic sensor, again, we have plenty of solutions to do that kind of transducers, but we wanted to move very quickly, so that's why we did that kind of sample. We are pretty familiar with now with bimorph, so we did a kind of flat flexural transducer based on a bimorph. So basically, you have the rigid frame, you have the bimorph here, you have the top and bottom electrode with an annular shape in order to, because with a flexural transducer, you have a double curvature, so you cannot have a fully plated transducer. We wanted to test a 2 millimeter diameter cells, and we have also a 3 millimeter diameter, and this is where we are now. We performed some simulation, and unfortunately, this is the stress, the von Mises stress expressed in Newton per square meter, and also you can see the displacement, but magnified. And here is the limit between the material to be monitored and the coupling material. And unfortunately, the displacements are limited due to this interface. We have to work on it. Anyway, that kind of devices have a central frequency, according to the modeling, in the range of 300 kilohertz, which is quite high, but we can again go in, let's say, in a thinner bimorph architecture, and then have a good have a frequency below 100 kilohertz. This is what we got using a very simple CNC machine. So here you can see on this microscopic photography the annular top electrode, of course the pads, and here is the central electrode for the 2 millimeter diameter and for the 3 millimeter diameter cells. So just to conclude, we are at the beginning of this development, but it is critical for us to continue all this development in order to figure out what are the key specifications for further and for further advanced development with regard to the energy harvesting device. We think that we will integrate a MEMS-based piezoelectric energy harvesting device. The same for the custom DC-DC IC. This is something that we need because we are not really able to manage the electrical impedance mismatch between the energy harvesting device and the existing electronics. So we have to develop our own DC-DC converter. And that's it. Just to remind you that you are more than welcome to attend to the next IEEE International Ultrasonic Symposium, which will be at Tours, our hometown, next year. So thank you for your attention.